The glass onion, oh boy, strap yourself in for this one. So we got this group of eccentric people, they all get this box in the mail. One lady's named Peg, she's rich off the cover magazine. This other girl's name is Claire, she's like the governor of a state or whatever. One's named Duke, he's got this high-ranking Twitter account. Another named Lionel, he's like a scientist. Now all four of these people get this box, this puzzle box, whatever like that. They solve the puzzles as an invitation to this dude by the name of Miles Braun. They're gathering together for his own murder mystery. We're like, the fuck, is he dead? A lady by the name of Andy gets this box too, but she gets pissed off. She smashes the shit open and gets the invitation. Then we see our detective, Benoit Blanc, gets a box too. So he's like, okay. Now all six of these people are invited to the island. Now all these friends basically know each other, but they're thinking to themselves, why is Benoit invited here? I guess he's gonna have the world's greatest detective help out with this murder mystery on the island. All right, cool. But everybody gets all shocked and surprised when Andy actually shows up. So basically, all these people were successful because of Miles. The thing about Andy is she had half her company stolen away from Miles. Well, why? And she's basically not on the rich side of things, so they're thinking to themselves, like, why is she even showing up? Why would she even want to look at Miles, you know what I'm saying? So they get to the island, we see that Miles is still alive. He's just like chilling, playing on his guitar. He gathers everybody together and they're going to start this like murder mystery thing once they get to like dinner. Andy hangs around Benoit for most of the trip, but we're thinking to ourselves, why? So basically this guy's a billionaire, he's got this lavish house. He's got a bunch of antiques in his room, but he's got one particular one that's sitting on the side of the wall. He actually has the picture of the real Mona Lisa sitting there in his house. I'm like, how the fuck did he get a hold of that? He tells this story about always wanting to be in France and Paris and stuff like that. He's got the thing with a security wall on it to make sure it never gets tampered with and whatnot. So Miles talks to Benoit one-on-one and he's thinking to himself like, well, why are you here? He's like, what do you mean I got a box like everybody else? But the thing is, Miles said he only sent out 5 boxes to his friends. So we're thinking to ourselves, who sent the 6 box and who invited Benoit to here? So later on, they all go swim by the pool. They're telling each other stories. And they like to call themselves the disruptors or whatever like that. Basically, they all had things they done in their careers where they felt like they had to cross over the line to get the things that they desired or they wanted. But Andy's like, man, that's all a bunch of bullshit. So then we get back to the dining room. We find out about this court case that Andy lost. And basically, all of Miles' friends was on Miles' side because all their companies were directly tied to him. Each of them had situations where they could have been messed up in legal loopholes. Basically, they all decided to side with him to keep their situation intact. Now how could they do this? Because when Benoit and Miles were alone, they're sitting in this big room and he calls it the Glass Onion. Now, why does he call it that? Because the Glass Onion used to be an actual bar they used to go to. Like, I think it closed down about 9 years ago or something like that. Now, Claire, Duke, Lionel, and Birdie, they were all doing whatever they were doing in their careers, but they weren't really going nowhere. And this is where Andy introduced Miles to the group. Now, he had all these brilliant ideas, brilliant schemes and whatnot. A lot of it, they didn't feel like it would pan out. They just thought he was crazy. If those things started going right in each of his careers, they were like, oh, snaps, like Miles is really a genius. Then Miles and Andy together came up with this thing called the Alpha. They wrote it out on a napkin and put their plan into fruition, and that's when they got this big company 2 years later. But the thing is, Andy was the one that actually wrote it on the napkin, the plan to be set in motion. Now, how this worked, Miles discovered this thing that is supposed to be some type of like hydrogen fossil fuel, but it's in like small crystal form. It's powerful enough to produce all the electricity that's on the island right now. As a matter of fact, the whole island is charged with this fossil fuel. And he wants to distribute it for real, but Lionel is like, it hasn't been tested yet, it's not safe. And he knows he can go down for this if his plan backfires. Basically, they calm the room down, everybody has drinks. Now, Duke came there with his girl, Whiskey, right? In one particular scene, we see Duke looking through the window, and Miles is about to smash Whiskey. We're like, what the fuck? But trust me, something comes out of this, I'll tell you later. So at this point, everybody's having drinks. Duke is like, yeah, my Twitch streams are going up. It's going on and popping. You know what I'm saying? We can get that deal going. Miles hugs him, they celebrate, and he's about to celebrate with a drink. Then all of a sudden, Duke starts choking out of nowhere. He falls through the table. He's done dead as shit. We're like, what? So they try and call the police. The police ain't gonna get there until about 6 in the morning the next day. So while Benoit's trying to figure out what the heck is going on, Miles looks over at the glass. He's like, wait a minute. The glass actually says Miles on it. The glass was actually meant for Miles. So Miles is basically thinking somebody's trying to kill him. For real this time. So now we're trying to figure out who's the victim, who's the killer. So when they try to put all this together, you're thinking to yourself, like, people have reasons to kill Miles, but nobody really does because they need money from him. Or they need his influence because of the situations that they're in. So Birdie's situation is like she got to pop it in the fashion world, you know what I'm saying, sponsoring the sweatpants or whatever. But her background, she did something stupid. Her actual sweatpants were being made by sweatshops. We're like, seriously? That could easily ruin her reputation, ruin her name, and basically make her go broke. Lionel's side is the fossil fuel stuff. For Claire, something like this could ruin her governor campaign or whatever. And obviously Duke's dead, so that doesn't, yeah. So Benoit had figured out the fake mystery earlier, but now it's turned to a real mystery. So Duke always had this little small pistol on him, but when he looks over at the body again, we're like, wait a minute, the pistol's gone. Who's got that gun? When they show us the flashback, Miles is sitting down and Duke picked up his glass by accident. So who tried to poison him at this point and who made the glasses? Didn't he have people pick out their own glasses? So then it gets to a point, he doesn't want Benoit to go anywhere. Nobody wants anybody to go anywhere. Everybody's staying here. But then they talk about the time. It's almost 10 o'clock. So around 10 o'clock, all the lights just go out all of a sudden. I guess they use a certain batch of the fossil fuel. Now, around this whole time, Andy's missing. So people are starting to think Andy did it. Because right before all this went down, Duke told her the truth about the case and everything, talking about, yeah, you were just a loser. It just happened like that. So she was feeling some type of way and she had left the room. So everybody's looking for lights. Everybody starts panicking. Now everybody's all across the daggone room, a house or whatever. Everybody's looking for Andy, but Andy runs into Benoit. But before you get any information out of it, all you hear is a gunshot. Andy gets shot. We're like, oh shit. Andy's done dead as shit. What? Everybody comes out of hiding. All of a sudden, the lights come back on. Now we're really trying to get to the bottom of this mystery. Now Benoit is basically pissed off right now. This where it gets crazy. Now we got a flashback. Now Benoit was in the tub when he got his box or whatever like that to be invited to this island, right? So we go to the door, we find out who actually sent the box. Turns out it was Andy herself. We're like, what the fuck? But as he's talking to her, we find out that's not Andy. That's actually Andy's sister, Helen, her twin sister. So the situation goes like this. Her sister, Andy, actually died yesterday. Now, they tried to make it seem like she committed suicide, but there was no suicide letter, nothing like that. In fact, her sister Helen is thinking that she was murdered because she found her in the garage laying in the car or whatever. But this is the reason why she thinks she was murdered. Andy has sent out this tweet talking about I found it, and it sees her in a picture with this red envelope. Now, what's in this red envelope exactly? This red envelope actually contained the real napkin with the real alpha formula on it. So basically, when Miles had his day in court, he had a fake copy of the formula. And when it came time to the court case, Claire, Duke, Birdie, and Lionel all co-signed with Miles on it. Apparently, after the case, Andy went into a rage. He started knocking over stuff, and then she knocked over a bookshelf. And then one of the books was the actual real formula, which she had put in a red envelope. And that would have been her evidence to take back the company or whatever. So her sister thinks somebody had her killed for this, but you think to yourself, who did it? Now, Benoit wants to help her. At the same time, he's thinking to himself, well, maybe you should go as your sister to try to get the situation out. But then he's thinking, that's a bad idea because the killer already knows that they killed your sister. But at this point, she changed her mind. She basically wants to go. And basically, she goes there pretending to act like her sister. While she's there, her whole purpose is trying to find clues as to like who would have more motive to do whatever. And majority of the time, a lot of people have motive and think to themselves like anybody could have killed his sister. And to pretty much help Miles because he's the one that got them all successful or whatnot. Then they start thinking to themselves, what if Miles did it? They're like, Miles couldn't do it. He wouldn't sully his hands. You know what I'm saying? So we go back to the scene where Duke was looking at Miles trying to have sex with Whiskey. But it turns out she was just trying to convince Miles to, do things with Duke so he could join this Alpha King project or whatever. But Miles still wasn't trying to put him on, and that's what pissed off Duke. So they're thinking to themselves at this point, like, look, we got to find the red envelope. So then we get back to the dinner scene where Duke had just told off Andy, who we now know was Helen. But the thing is, the whole plan was for her to start a fight on purpose to make it like she stormed out. But really, the whole time when she's gone, she's basically checking through everybody's rooms to try to find this red envelope. Now, there's one guy on the island named Frank. He just gets high. He's just minding his business, just walking around like not doing nothing. So you're thinking to yourself, does he have any involvement in all this? I'm here to tell you right now, he doesn't. You thought it'd be the random guy, did you? Nah, it ain't him. So anyway, she's going through one of the rooms and then all of a sudden Whiskey's in the room. Now at this point, this is when everybody's looking for Andy and Whiskey and Duke had already died. So Andy's telling her all this stuff like, look, you can't worry about that. You got to keep going on with your life, do what you got to do. But Andy doesn't know that Duke's dead. So Whiskey took it the wrong way. She ended up finding a spirit gun and tried to almost spear Andy and shit. Andy had to dip out. Then we get to the part where Benoit and Andy meet up with each other and then she ends up getting shot. Now, at this point, Benoit had tried some food in there, whatever like that. This had some crazy hot sauce. He was like, yeah, just take a couple bottles. Apparently, he had a bottle of hot sauce on him now. Why is this important? Because when Andy got shot, Andy was still alive. We were like, what the fuck? Helen's still alive. Like, how is she still alive? Apparently, she had her phone in the side or whatever like that, stopped the bullet. But what he did was make sure she pretended like she was still dead. He pulled out the hot sauce and started pouring it all over the body to make it seem like it was blood right there. So before everybody came out when they heard shots or whatever like that, he told her, like, actually, when he's going to lure everybody back in the house, and he's like, yo, the one place you haven't checked is the Glass Onion. Go check that spot. So when everybody was lured back to the main dining room, she got up and then went to the Glass Onion part of the house. So she goes to the Glass Onion. She sees the Glass Onion picture with the friends in it or whatever like that. But then she sees something behind the picture. She goes behind the picture and the red envelope sitting right there, like right in front of her eyes the whole time. Then all of a sudden we find out that Benoit deduced that Miles is the killer. He's like, what? How? So apparently when Miles was sitting next to Duke and he picked up the wrong glass, it turns out Miles actually handed him the glass. He wasn't paying attention. Now, what did his concoction have in it? It had alcohol, vodka, and pineapple juice. Now, why is that important? Because earlier Duke said he can't have pineapples because he's allergic to them. So it wasn't even poison. Half of it was just filled with pineapple juice. He can't even have one drop, let alone half a damn glass. And that's what killed him. But now we're thinking to ourselves, who tried to kill Andy, aka Helen? So basically when he was talking to When Miles was talking to Duke, he was able to slip the gun away from him. But why would he even need the gun? Turns out what Duke was really looking at on his phone when he was talking about his Twitter file was going up, but what he was really looking at was a picture of Cassandra, aka Andy, and they found out about the suicide that happened yesterday. So now they're on to, now Miles is thinking to himself, well, who the fuck is this then? Or he might have been on to the fact that that was not Andy, that was Helen. But nobody else knew that. Everybody thought it was Andy. Andy had also checked her on her phone. She got those text messages or whatever like that. That's why she was scrambling around the house so quick, because somebody would have figured out that she's not her. And basically, he's the one that shot through the glass and tried to kill Helen. So he's basically ridiculously shocked as everybody else is when she starts walking down the elevator with the freaking red envelope. So he's basically like, look, you can take that in there, but that's not going to prove anything. I got a copy too. But the difference between that and the real one, it has the glass onion stamp plate on it. The real one, you can never get that back because, like you said, the bar closed down 9 years ago. I don't know how he did it with his laser pen, but he did it so quick, it ended up lighting the napkin on fire. So there goes the evidence. So without the evidence, they're basically fucked. And he could just deny the whole thing. He's got like, $1 billion worth of lawyers. And he still has his copy of the napkin. And of course, the crew gonna ride with Miles because they ain't got no choice, right? So Helen's felt like she lost. She goes up to Benoit. Benoit's like, hey, there's nothing really I can do. He's right. He ends up giving her a glass to drink, and he gave her something else in her pocket. Now, you think to yourself, what did he give her? So she throws a tantrum and just starts breaking stuff. And then eventually the crew joins along and starts breaking up stuff too. Then somehow she lights up something. She starts this fire. But then we find out what Benoit gave her. He actually gave her like one of the fossil fuel crystals that he had in his hand earlier and threw that shit in the fire, and then like pretty much the house caught on fire. The only thing that was protected at this point now is the Mona Lisa picture. So she goes over to rush over to this thing. She presses the button and it unleashes the security lock, and then the Mona Lisa picture burns up too. So Miles is like, all right, you burnt up a bunch of things. So what? I still have my connects. I still got people that's gonna ride me. And she's like, no, you still don't get it. Your own fossil fuel burnt up the Mona Lisa, which people are not going to stand for. They're going to think it's unsafe, which means I basically ruined you. And he's talking to his crew, and his crew are like, well, basically, since you're ruined, like, you know what? I did see him burn up the napkin. So they basically turning on him. The last thing we see is Benoit chilling at the beach waiting for Andy to get there, or aka Helen to get there. And they see the police coming. I tried to shorten up as much as I could, but you need to watch this movie. This joint is so ridiculous how everything plays out to certain people's hands. It's wild. Glass Onion on Netflix. Check it out.